Britain is still in the grip of a vacancy crisis. Although the number of unfilled vacancies has fallen steadily from a high point of 1,302,000 in the second quarter of 2022, it still stood at 908,000 in the first quarter of 2024. At its height, the labour shortage resulted in an establishment media moral panic. Lorry drivers, a profession with a high average age, were in notable short supply just as the economy was screaming out for goods to be moved. The shortage of workers was more widespread, as The Week, to take just one example of establishment media coverage at the time, reported.
Anyone going on a UK break this month would do well to book pubs and restaurants well in advance, said the Sunday Times, and even if they get a table, they shouldn't expect a full menu. It is more than a year since the last lockdown, but the hospitality industry is still facing acute labour shortages, and it's not the only one. Britain is currently in the grip of an employment crisis. There are 1.3 million job vacancies, and for the first time, there are not enough people looking for work to fill them. This is partly down to Brexit. It has contributed to the exodus of 200,000 EU citizens in the past 2 years, but a greater number of people, 450,000, have simply left the workforce since 2019 and are now economically inactive, neither in work nor looking for work.
With inflation rising, a wave of strikes brewing, economists, politicians and journalists began talking about the dreaded wage price spiral, which was, wrongly, believed to be the cause of the inflation in the 1970s. And since job vacancies are one of the key statistics used by the Bank of England's Monetary Policy Committee when setting interest rates, it resulted in the policy of raising rates higher for longer. In this respect, though, it hasn't worked. Employers, apparently, are still struggling to find the workers they need. And since there are literally no young and fit, spare working-age people in the UK to fill the close to 1 million jobs, both the Tory government and the Tory light opposition have decided to make the lives of disabled people even harder in an attempt to force them to take jobs for which they're mostly going to be unsuited, and in reality which even employers struggling to fill vacancies are not going to offer them. The economically inactive statistic, however, is seriously misleading because it includes some 2.2 million students. And while, given the perilous financial state of most UK universities these days, there's a good case for closing at least half of them, it's mendacious to claim that students are inactive. A large number of EU workers also left the UK during the lockdowns. But it was older workers who supposedly were the largest group to become economically inactive, that is, neither in work nor claiming benefits. Despite the so-called Great Retirement, though, and the pre-election media fetish for attacking people who are on benefits, there's no evidence of a significant increase in the rate of economic inactivity, which has been broadly flat for more than a decade. So how do we explain the mismatch between the vacancy and the inactivity data? First, even the Office for National Statistics admits that it doesn't know how many jobs there are. The best it can do is make estimates based upon small surveys of employers, together with a larger survey of vacancies. But these surveys are several steps removed from the thing they purport to be measuring. It's a bit like trying to discover whether it's raining by counting the number of umbrellas. It may be broadly accurate, but you'll have problems if we get a heat wave. So, might it be that the UK labour market is in a metaphorical heat wave, in which the statisticians are counting the wrong kind of umbrellas? It turns out that yes, indeed it is, and in large part because of the shortage of workers following 2 years of ill-considered lockdowns. This 2021 to 2022 labour shortage was real enough. The problem is that the 2024 vacancy figures are simply wrong, in large part precisely because the 2022 figures were broadly correct. To understand why this may be, put yourself in the position of an employer trying to restart a business after lockdown. Advertising a job, conducting interviews, and providing startup training is both time-consuming and expensive. And it is all the more fraught when a universal labour shortage and rising wages means that the person you employ may up and leave in a couple of months' time. So what do? There's no law aside from basic common law or tangentially equalities legislation to prevent an employer advertising jobs which don't exist. Among the employment agencies, these are known as ghost jobs. Yes, someone could technically sue for damages or discrimination, but as the folks at Agency Central explain,
unless the job ad involves an exchange of money, it's difficult to prove that it was fake. Think about it. How can you be sure that a recruiter or employer wasn't genuinely hiring? It's your word against theirs. And any form of questioning can easily be batted away with "we are hiring" or "we did have a vacancy but didn't find anyone suitable for the role."
In the face of the 2021-22 labour shortage, a large number of employers engaged in CV harvesting, either posting ghost jobs or keeping job adverts live long after the position was filled, with the aim of holding a spare applicant list, either to fill new positions or to replace any workers who moved on. A smaller number may have posted ghost jobs to cover nepotism or to avoid being sued for discrimination. That is, to give the impression of a competitive process when there really isn't one. And some may simply have been fishing to see what wage rate they would need to pay. Sadly, there are also fraudsters who post ghost jobs in an attempt to persuade job seekers to pay money up front. In short, there's every reason to believe that the vacancy data includes some amount of ghost jobs. The question, though, is how many? Are ghost jobs merely a statistical blip, or might they cause policymakers to do the opposite of what they should be doing, such as holding high interest rates when they should have lowered them? Fortunately, perhaps because of the competitive nature of the employment agency sector, this research has been conducted. So we can say with some certainty that in 2024, ghost jobs have indeed had a significant impact on the official statistics. And insofar as central bank and government policy is based on those statistics, then yes, both government and the Bank of England are doing the wrong thing. In short, attempting to address a ghost labour shortage with policies designed to shrink and slow an economy which is already shrinking and slowing. As Andrew Fennell at Standout CV explains,
ghost jobs are the practice of companies advertising a job that either never existed or is no longer active. They may create a job advert and post on job boards to build a pool of candidates for future hiring, or to keep some candidates around in case the new hire doesn't work out. Some businesses will leave an old job advert live for weeks after filling it for the same reasons. Ghost jobs can save hiring teams time as they have a database of people to go to, but unfortunately, it can mean job hunters are wasting valuable hours tailoring their CV for a job they have zero chance of ever getting. To find out more about this practice, we investigated over 91,300 job listings in the UK over an 8-week period to see where ghost jobs are at their worst and what industry is most guilty of doing so. Our data analysis of 20 popular job roles indicated that 34.4% of job listings could be considered ghost jobs. The ONS estimates that there were around 344,666 job vacancies available in an average month from April to June 2023. Taking this number and our percentage of ghost job listings, there would be an estimated 118,565 active ghost jobs each month in the UK.
These findings are reinforced by the UK government's own Jobs Aware partnership, which found
A rise of 259% in job scam reports from Q4 in 2022 to 2023. It also shows 3 in 4 job seekers want more action from job boards to prevent fraudulent activity.
The very fact that government is creating this scheme points to a widespread problem. And the 259% increase in reports from genuine job seekers would suggest that the ghost vacancy problem exists, at least on the scale suggested by Andrew Fennell's research. If a third of official vacancies are ghosts, then the number of real job vacancies is likely to be somewhat below the depressed 2019 level. Moreover, with the number of payrolled employees rising by 368,000 in February alone, there may be no labour shortage at all, particularly as last year's interest rates are only now producing the desired rise in redundancies. Worse than this, though, is the problem of delayed reaction. When the Bank of England raised interest rates at the fastest pace in their history, we didn't see a wave of business closures and mortgage defaults immediately afterwards, because these things take time. Faced with growing debts, households will cut discretionary spending, and if necessary, curb essential spending too. And if they still can't cope, they will seek to go into debt with the least dangerous lenders. Maxing out the credit card, hitting the overdraft limit will happen before they cease paying their rent or their mortgage. And since utilities are paid in arrears, they will probably stop paying for gas, electricity and water ahead of defaulting on the mortgage. Indeed, because many of the 1.5% mortgages of the lockdown years are only now rolling over, this process of rapid indebtedness is only beginning to have an effect at this moment. Businesses too will seek to extend credit and cut costs. But in the face of an apparent labour shortage, they're likely to cut hours rather than lay off workers entirely. The fact that insolvencies and redundancies are finally beginning to accelerate and unemployment is finally starting to tick up indicates that it's only now that the interest rates are having the Bank of England's desired effect. The economy is slowing and a debt crisis is on the way. But even now, a legion of ghost jobs is making the situation look far less deadly than it actually is. The result, even though not the intention of the thousands of employers using ghost jobs to harvest CVs, is that the Bank of England will indeed have held rates too high for too long. And the anticipated soft landing is more likely to be a train wreck, which depresses the UK economy for the remainder of the decade.